Good morning, everyone. A little bit different student population for me this morning, but nonetheless, I know you guys are all here as lifelong learners, which is something that we at JABSOM really promote. I just thank you, Dr. Masaki, for the introduction. She said I've been on faculty for over 20 years, so I think you can imagine I probably started as a teenager here, right? Yeah. So I'll just further introduce myself. Let me get my slides on. Okay. I'll start by just saying who I am and where I come from. So the image on, I guess, your left, my right, is from Palau. So Ali from Palau in Micronesia, that's where my family originally comes from. Anybody here been to Palau? Oh, yay, a few hands. They really do look like that, the islands and the blue waters. It does look like a blue zone over there. And then in the middle picture is a beautiful sunset from the island of Guam, which is where I was born and raised. So half a day from Guam. Still have lots of family and friends that live there. I lived there my entire childhood. And then the last picture there is from Kahalu, Oahu on the windward side. And that's where I call home. This is just down the road from where I live. You see the beautiful ko'olaus in the background. And so aloha from the windward side. And that's where I have my home with my husband and my two teenagers. Well, one teenager is off at college, and my dog and cat. So it's a beautiful ride over, it's a beautiful ride home every day, crossing the mountains. Coming to town, you know, it's a little bit, yeah, because you got to come in and then you see all the tall buildings around. Not as much a blue zone on this side, but definitely on the windward side. Okay. So maybe just show of hands, have folks heard of the blue zones? Yeah, quite a few. It's been around for a number of years. So just a disclaimer, I'm not, you know, like an expert in the blue zones. It's definitely something that I've been interested for a few years. And Dr. Masaki did ask, and maybe it came out of the evaluations where someone suggested this as a topic. But it's something that I think ties in with what I'm really interested in, which is what she mentioned, whole person care. Really the question, I think, on the previous slide, or the title, Live Longer, Better. So the goal, right, our goal isn't, maybe for some, is to live longer, but we don't want to just live longer. We want to live longer, better. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly try to summarize what the blue zones are, talk a little bit about that, some of the principles that came out of the research that was done, and then maybe towards the end, try to tie it in more with lifestyle medicine. There's a really nice overlap between the blue zones and lifestyle medicine. And so all the images that you're going to see and a lot of the content, I paraphrased, it's directly from Blue Zones resources. And as of last year, Blue Zones doesn't have a formal presence in Hawaii anymore. The sponsorship ended. At one point, JABSOM, we were trying to become a Blue Zone certified workplace. And then we were almost there, and then the program ended. But we still have a lot of great things that we're trying to do here at our school. Okay. So just quickly, I wanted to just mention that the blue zones, and we'll go into all the different areas, but these were actual studies that were done through National Geographic. They had researchers, epidemiologists, cartographers, people that actually looked at birth records, death records. And so there was something that came out a few years ago that tried to debunk their research, saying this was made up, they didn't do very good research, but actually it was debunked, and it showed that they really did do some truly scientific research. And actually, I think one of the folks involved in debunking that was one of our faculty here in Dr. Masaki's Department of Geriatrics. Yeah. Okay, so there's 5 blue zones, 5 original blue zones, if you guys have heard of some of these places. So Nicoya in Costa Rica was the first one that, well, not the first one, but one of the ones they identified. And as I go through some of these things, you'll see like some common themes between the different. There is a fly over here that, where's my chopsticks? I'm just gonna like grab it. But yeah, so Costa Rica was one of the areas that they looked at. And what they found was they tended to have lower disease rates. very strong family values. And I think as you hear some of what I talk about, you're like, oh, that kind of sounds like what we have here in Hawaii as well. They tend to focus on a more traditional diet. So their diet was like the three sisters: beans, corns, and squash, right? So very traditional, not so much of the processed foods that we might see in our US diet. They tended to have high calcium content in their water, which contribute to stronger bones. But also their strong bones was because of a lot of the things that they were just doing naturally, weight-bearing exercises, which for them was more about physical activity. A lot of these cultures that we'll talk about, there was no word for exercise. It was just part of their daily lives to get up and move and do things. Sensible sun exposure. So they were out in the sun, right? We get our vitamin D, but it wasn't like, they're not out there laying on the beach tanning, right? They're spending certain times in the sun. They knew when the high UV index time was, without it being, on the news. They just knew, like, okay, this is a good time to be out in the sun, and maybe we should find shelter or do something indoors. Okay. And the main thing, I think, is their plan de vida, their life purpose. They had a reason for getting up in the mornings, whether they were cooking food for their grandchildren or babysitting their grandkids or just contributing to their community. They had a purpose for getting up, and that was a big part of what they found. So I'm going to just interject a few times where I know people want to chat. So maybe talk to your neighbor, and maybe if you want to share with your neighbor, like, what is your reason for getting up in the morning? What was your reason for getting up today, besides coming here to mini medical school? So maybe turn, and we'll just, a couple of seconds, talk to each other, and then we'll come back. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There was a seed that I found. It was like right here on the podium up front. Yeah, like a seed. It was like someone found someone's food. What the?
Okay. I love to hear everyone had a purpose, a reason for getting up this morning. Does anyone want to shout out? Maybe a couple people shout out what their purpose was, if you're willing to share. Means we're alive. Yeah. Hi, back there. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Young lady here has a beautiful plan de vida. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. So for me, it's, many reasons to get up in the morning, to be a mom to my kids, and then to be a mom teacher to our medical students as well, are things that give me purpose. The second place, which actually was the first place that they actually looked at, was Sardinia, Italy. And this is where they found the longest lived men. Oh, God, this fly. I hate flies. It's just here buzzing around me. And so here in Sardinia, what they found was, again, diet was a big factor. Looking at their traditional foods, whole grains, beans, olive oil. And again, movement was just a part of their daily life. They were very active lifestyle, strong family bonds. So you see a lot of very similar themes, and you'll see that throughout. And then also moderate wine drinking. So in Sardinia, they have a specific wine called Canana wine, which tends to have I believe it's 3 times the antioxidants found in other drinks and foods. So this came up last time in the spring. the question was, well, so Dr. Wong, are you suggesting that we drink some Cananao wine? And I'm like, well, I'm providing the information that they found through their research. It's up to you. Moderate wine drinking is defined as like less than 2 or less drinks for men per day and 1 or less drinks for women per day. And the drink, so it depends on what kind of beverage, because it depends on the alcohol content. What the research is showing, especially for cancer, that there is no safe level of alcohol when it comes to like cancer risk. So you take that information and do what you want with it. I personally do enjoy a glass of wine on the weekend, probably tonight, especially if the Dodgers win. I just realized, so I didn't define what actually blue zones was, right? So hopefully, I think I totally skipped over that. Blue zones are the places that they found where there was a greater concentration of people living to the age of 100. Okay, so again, not just living to 100, it's living to 100 and still being active members of their community. So not living to 100 and being kind of isolated, bedridden. So it was good 100-year-old living. Okay. And then Icaria, Greece, very similar to Italy, right? They're both Mediterranean countries, and so similar lower rates of heart disease and dementia. They tended to focus again on diet. They had some herbal teas. Olive oil was a big part of it, so good fats. Regular napping for heart health. So napping was a big part of it too. Stress-free lifestyle. So stress, and we'll go into this a little bit later, stress contributes so much, has such a negative impact on our health. So if we can find ways to manage stress, it's going to do so much for us. And so regular napping can help with that as well. And again, you'll see social networks are such a big part of all of this. Okay. And then maybe someplace we're a little more familiar with in Okinawa. And so this is where they found the longest lived women. So, they're probably like single women. So maybe we can match up the single women from Okinawa with the guys in Sardinia. But again, similar to Costa Rica, right? The plan de vida. So in Okinawa, they have something called ikigai. So your sense of purpose. Again, the reason for waking up in the morning. They tend to have a more plant-based diet. So sweet potatoes, tofu, all kinds of stuff. They grow gardens. And then anybody practices this hara hachibu, like eat till you're 80% full? Yeah. Americans were not, in the US, we're not so good at eating to 80%. And especially, I remember as a kid, and I try not to do this with my kids, but as a kid, it was like, finish everything on your plate. It's like, I'm full. No, finish, eat all your food. And so I try not to do that. I tried not to do that with my kids growing up. But yeah, just kind of knowing when you're 80% and then stop and not try to go too far with that. And again, here we see social groups, connection, such a big part of it. And so they have something called moais, where you have this close unit of friends, and they stay together and they support each other throughout life. Okay, and then lastly, I think part of this, so in Loma Linda, California, part of it was this pressure, I think, to like, well, we're finding all these blue zones throughout the world, but can we find a blue zone in the United States? And they sort of settled on Loma Linda. Not a true blue zone in the sense that it wasn't so much about the area that they lived. So if we think about the previous ones that I've talked about, they tend to have like maybe a little bit more isolated in their geography. It's a certain population, and Loma Linda was more of a population. You could take this group who are Seventh-day Adventists and move them to another part of the world, and they probably still have the same healthy practices. So it wasn't so much about the region they were living in California, but it was about the population itself. So they're faith-based, they eat a plant-based diet, they observe the Sabbath, and so that's like Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. So rest, they spend time with family. So all the things that Blue Zones was finding in other places, Loma Linda, the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda were doing the same thing. So very strong community focus. Oh, I'm running out of time. I better hurry up. Okay, so after they did all this research, they were like trying to figure out, okay, how do we pull all of this together? And they come up with the Power 9 principles. So we'll quickly go through that. Okay, so move naturally. So active lifestyle. Okay. So active lifestyle instead of structured exercise. So they weren't like, I need to sign up for a gym membership. It was just part of what they did. It was incorporated into their daily life, especially like in Greece, where they had to go walk up and down the mountains on a regular basis, right? So just incorporate. So these are the things that maybe a lot of you guys are already doing. And if you're doing these, great, continue to do it. And then bring friends along with you. So daily walking instead of structured exercise, big part. And look at those green onions. Oh my goodness. Very nice. And then purpose, ikigai. So what we talked about earlier, waking up every day with a clear sense of purpose, it adds years to our life if you can feel like you have purpose, right? A reason to get up. And, I think about my in-laws. Both of them passed away last year. My mother-in-law passed away at the age of 93, my father-in-law at 95. And I think about like my mother-in-law's purpose after she retired in her 60s. She was like, her thing was, I'm going to cook for my family. So every week, or, several times a week, she would make huge family meals, and then she'd call all of us, come and get your food. And for her, that was the thing for so long was, I'm going to feed my family. And that's how I show my love for them. And so that was her purpose, I think. And it, and she was also moved naturally. She was just very active person. So I think beyond the good genes that she might have had, I think it was definitely the way that she lived her life. Okay, managing stress. So downshifting. So things as like prayers. I mentioned taking a nap earlier. Enjoying meals. A lot of times we tend to rush through meals. I know I'm kind of guilty of this myself. It's like busy day, I'm going to eat in front of my computer just so I can get things done. But what I've tried to do recently, partly because of Blue Zones, and we have a wellness initiative going on here at JABSOM. I'm like, well, at least once a week, I'm going to find a colleague, a friend, and take my lunch outside and eat outside. And it does wonders for you to just spend that time and just pause, enjoy your meal, eat mindfully. It's like only eat 80%. And then I can come back to my office much more relaxed, ready to continue the day. So finding your different ways to manage your stress is really important. Here's the 80%. So you can think about this when you go next door to enjoy your yummy lunch. I'm not going to walk around looking to see who's eating 80%. But yeah, it's just a reminder for us. Again, eat mindfully, not this, I'm just going to eat and watch TV kind of thing, but really thinking about what we're eating, even connecting to our food. Like, do we know where our food is coming from? Think about that. Those kinds of things, I think, can help us to be more mindful in our approach to eating. Okay. And what are we eating? And so Blue Zones does, because of what they found in these countries, these Blue Zones, is promoting plant-based diet. So not necessarily saying go vegan or vegetarian, but can plants be a significant part of your plate? Okay, because there's so many health benefits to eating plants. And so these are just some really beautiful meals here. And I'm still learning to cook a lot of plant-based stuff. So I'm not completely, eating plant-based, but definitely have added a lot more to my own personal diet. Okay. And then here's the wine. What they actually found was, yes, the wine and the specific wine was, important, but it was that they're not at home drinking wine by themselves. It was really about socializing, connecting with others, and that really had that additive effect of the wine. So it's more about how do we connect with people and family and friends? And then that's also where they can maybe de-stress. And so it wasn't necessarily about the wine or the wine content itself, although their specific wine seemed to be healthier. Yeah. And then, hey, connections, it comes up again. Social connections, so important. And actually, the surgeon, our previous Surgeon General talked about loneliness being a really, have a really significant impact on our health, to the point where they equated, I think, loneliness with, it was as if you were smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it's pretty detrimental. So keeping up those connections, right? So don't isolate, surround yourself with people that make you laugh, that make you get up and go, that make you want to wake up in the morning. It's so important. Okay, loved ones first. So again, similar to the social connections, like prioritize those relationships, maintain those bonds. You know, I think about like my family, I have family here and then in Guam and Palau, and trying to just, you know, technology is great now, so I don't have, it's not like the olden days where I would have to physically write a letter. We get on, we have our group chats and stuff, and it's, you know, even though I may be thousands of miles away, it's like we're there with each other because there's so much stuff going on. So great use of technology. But then also just a human connection in person is really nice too. Oh, I forgot to say hi to the people on Zoom. But it's also nice to see like human faces, right? We went through the pandemic not too long ago where we were so socially isolated, and to be able to come back together and be with people in person is just such a blessing. So try to maintain those bonds. And then belonging, they found that people, if they belong to a faith-based community, doesn't matter what religion it was, but having that consistency, you know, attending to your faith base at least once per month was enough to kind of give them some of that, that strength. And so that contributes to lifespan. And so if you think about what happens when you're in a faith-based community, maybe some of the conversations that you have, some of the values that are discussed, right? So that's something to think about. So putting it all together, just a summary of the Blue Zone's Power 9. We have move naturally, right? So making it a part of your daily life, getting up and move. In Okinawa, when the researchers went to do their research, what they found was there was no furniture in the house. Okay? And it wasn't like that they couldn't afford it. That was just the way they lived. And so the process of sitting on the floor and getting up and down multiple times, that was great for your body. That was great for your, like, especially your lower body strength. And so you think, like, now we kind of sit on chairs a lot. So if anyone has tried to sit on the floor and tried to get up, there's actually like an assessment where if you're using one hand, it's so many points, and if you use two hands, it's so many points. And so we did this with our family medicine residents a couple of months ago, and for some of the young people, it was easy. They just kind of like got up, and then for a few of us faculty, we were like, okay, oh, try not to use the hand, but yeah, so we had some minus points there. But yeah, it makes a big difference to, you know, think about like, oh, okay, just that simple thing of I'm gonna sit on the floor and get up on a regular basis. That might be a way to move naturally. Again, right outlook, knowing our purpose, downshifting, so working less, that would be nice. Slowing down, taking vacations. I make sure to take my vacations every year. There's people that don't take their vacations. I'm like, I'm taking my vacation. Eat wisely. So again, 80% full, more plants. Glass of red wine, up to you. I'm not saying yes or no. And then belonging is really, really big. Okay. So unfortunately, so the research that they did was a couple decades ago. And what we're finding is some places, let's say like in Okinawa or in Costa Rica, are being influenced by not so good things of the modern day. So maybe more processed foods, maybe more modern conveniences. So there's not as much of the maybe like traditional farming or gardening. and maybe more dependence on more modern technology. I think about, so in our home we have a bunch of trees. We have like a kukui tree, avocado tree, that mango tree, that, right, a lot of leaves. And for me, I like to rake. That's sort of my physical activity. It helps me sort of de-stress after work. And my husband, he comes out with the leaf blower. And he's like, why are you spending your time doing that? Like, here, just, and I'm like, no. Get your leaf blower out of here. Just leave me alone. I'm good. I'm good with the rake. Yeah. That's one of my activities. So what we're finding is a lot of these places maybe aren't maintaining the things that made them a blue zone. And so the researchers looked into other places and they kind of thought about blue zones 2.0. Okay, so how would a blue zone look in a more modern society, in a city where they don't necessarily have the mountains that they're climbing up every day or the farming? And they looked at Singapore and they said, hey, they're kind of a blue zone, right? So Singapore, what's kind of neat about Singapore is they've done a lot of things to really increase the lifespan of their population. So back in, I think it was 1960-ish, 65. Let me see if I can find the actual. Yeah, in 1960, their life expectancy was only 65 years. Any guesses as to what it's like right now? 80, 85-ish, yeah, 86 years. And so just based on some of the things that they were able to change through policy, a lot of things that the government kind of undertook really changed how they live and allowed them to really increase their longevity. So they're up to about 86 years. What do you think the lifespan is for Americans? I hear, yeah. Right now, it's about 79 years of age is kind of the life expectancy. So some of the things that Singapore did, they modified transportation. So they really promoted their transportation. I kind of giggle because I know we're trying to do some stuff on transportation here in Hawaii, but they've done some really good work around transportation, and they've made it really expensive to like own vehicles. So you almost had no choice but to take public transport. They've really increased their access to wholesome, healthy foods, which makes a huge difference. They foster a sense of community. So they've had incentives where they built, let's say, condos, and they said, okay, we're going to give you incentive to have your parents either live with you or live next door to you to keep that family community together, and so they can take care of each other. And so they've done incentives for that. Healthcare initiatives, they've done amazing things with their healthcare. And certainly it's very expensive to live there. But then they also, and their tax burden is high, but it's because the government is able to do a lot of things that we maybe in the US would have to pay for ourselves. Okay, so very interesting. Folks been to Singapore? Yeah. I haven't been, I really want to go. But yeah, so that's sort of what they're looking at now is like this, what does a Blue Zones 2.0 look like in more modern times? Okay. And then I might have mentioned this in the beginning. So we had something called Blue Zones Project, where they really looked at, okay, let's take these ideas of Blue Zones and how can we use it in different communities, right? How can different communities sort of practice these Blue Zones principles? Making the healthy choice the easy choice. And so we tried to do that here in Hawaii. There were different communities that ended up working on Blue Zones Project. Windward Side, we did have also a Blue Zones Project. But like I said, unfortunately, the project ended this past year. But it was really, looking at what does your built environment look like? Do you have things in place that help to promote these Blue Zones principles? Do you have open, green spaces? Do you have walking paths? Do you have easy access to like farmers markets, things like that, to promote all the different principles? Okay. And then just as we close up here, I mentioned lifestyle medicine in the beginning. Anybody heard of lifestyle medicine? Yeah. Yeah, not as many people. It's something that's fairly new in the last, I would say maybe 10 years or so. It's a new specialty of medicine. So I'm a family medicine physician, but I'm also board certified in lifestyle medicine. I did it during the pandemic, and it's really looking at the lifestyle factors that influence our health and how do we focus on those to keep us healthy or get us healthier. It's something that I was thinking about for a long time, and then I kind of discovered this, oh, wow, there's something called lifestyle medicine. And intuitively, it seems like common sense, but if it was common sense, then I think we would all be doing it, and we would all be much healthier, but we're not. And as a population, we spend so much of our money on chronic disease management, and how can we do it better? And this is where lifestyle medicine comes in. And it really just takes the principles of blue zones and tries to bring it into our clinical practices. So you see, this is just showing some of the overlap. You've got the blue zones principles on the left side, and then what we do with lifestyle medicine on the right side. So those are our pillars: getting regular physical activity, restorative sleep, managing your stress, whole food, plant-based, and social connections. And then the one that's left out of here is reducing risky substances, so trying to eliminate like alcohol, tobacco, things like that. So there's actually people that are board certified in lifestyle medicine. It's growing. It's the most rapidly growing specialty right now. And I'm actually heading to the conference in a couple weeks. But hopefully, we have very few that are lifestyle medicine board certified here in Hawaii, but hopefully we'll get more. And I have I'm very lucky that I get to practice this at Kokua Kalihi Valley, which is a community health center here in Kalihi. And I do group visits, and it's just, I get so much out of it every time I see the group. Okay, so to wrap up, so like longevity, it's not just about genetics. Yes, like my in-laws were very lucky to have good genes, but they also lived a great lifestyle too. So our lifestyle, our environment play a huge role, and we can make changes, not just on an individual level, but on a community level as well. So I think as you go out to the rest of your day and forward, just think about what is it that you can do, either something that you're already doing, continue to do it well, or something that you can add to what you're already doing. Okay, create our own blue zones. Okay. Yeah, so thank you, Sulang from Palau and Sujismasi from Guam.
Thank you, Vanessa, for an inspiring graduation speech. We have time for a couple of questions. If anybody has them, we can, again, take questions from our in-person or our online audience.
I really enjoy the way you said engineered longevity. So if you were to engineer, with your new practice of medicine as well, longevity in Oahu, where would that be? What would that be? Would it be part of Kahalanui? Would it be a separate area? Would it be a real estate mogul buying a group of homes and starting a new area? How do you envision that?
I'm maybe much simpler than that, and also maybe more economical. I just based on how I grew up, very simple, didn't have a lot growing up, and then the patient population that I work with in Kalihi, knowing what they have and don't have. And so in the practice that I am fortunate enough to do, we call it Aina Lifestyle. So we actually are trying to integrate Western lifestyle medicine with more traditional practices. And we meet in the back of Kalihi Valley, where our clinic has a nature preserve. And so I'm just like the luckiest person. I get to have clinic in the open space, in nature. And so we talk about some Aina-based practices that they can incorporate into their lives to address the different pillars. I would love to see that kind of spread out, where people can do like little things, like just if you don't have a yard to do a garden, can you just do some microgreens and just add a few of that to your daily lunch or something like that. Like connect and then connection. So your question is, how would I, if I was to engineer? Yeah, I think I would want people to be more connected to their place, connected to their food, like where does my food come from, who made my food. So I think for me it's all about connection, whether it's connection to your land, connection to your place, connection to food, connection to each other. So it doesn't necessarily mean like it's a specific like building or a structured community. I think for me it's more about connection. I don't know if that answers your question. Maybe I need
Time
some
for-
urban planning background for that one.
We have time for one last question. Okay.
Okay, this is maybe a strange question. Do you happen to know what is the lifespan in Hong Kong?
I do not.
Okay, I heard that
do you?
it's very. Well, I might be biased, but I'm from Hong Kong, long time ago. But I've heard that they have very long lifespan, and this is kind of surprising. You think of 8 million people in a tiny place, right? And I think there's some reason because the government kind of promoted. They now have a promenade along the whole island that you can walk
Go walking. Yeah.
around, and even very low-income people have access to this kind of, promenade. And also, the percentage of land used to build parks right in the city, famous park, Hong Kong Park, Kowloon Parks, takes huge amount of land. And even out in the territories, there are lots of parks. So maybe I was thinking, even though they don't talk about blue zones, maybe that's actually
Yeah.
a blue zone. And Chinese, particularly if you are not very rich, tends to eat a lot of plant-based food because they can't afford the beef,
Yeah.
right? And in Hong Kong, they have fish. It's an island. No, I'm just asking if she knows, how to compare blue zones.
Yeah, I'm sure there's many more blue zones than the ones that they identify, but you actually hit it, make a really good point that it's the open spaces, what's available naturally. And so, right, lucky we live Hawaii. And they've even talked about for lifestyle medicine, does nature become like the 7th pillar because it's so vital to our health? And we can just look outside. Back here, I go walking by the waterfront. It's a beautiful walk. We have like some of the best sunsets back here. So, maybe after work, go walking, watch the sunset. I feel so much better. So definitely taking advantage of what's available to us just naturally, I think is huge. And it's not like I'm driving somewhere to go to the gym to lift weights. I can just walk right outside, and get the benefit. So, you can create your blue zones wherever.
Please join me in thanking Vanessa for being an inspiring graduation speaker.
Thank you.
Now,